Blackbeard's last stand. Now, we leave the worn decks of the common ship behind and turn toward a singular, towering figure, a man wrapped in myth as much as salt and shadow. Edward Teach, or perhaps Edward Thatch. The name shifts in the records like a ripple on water, but the world came to know him by another name. A name chosen, or perhaps given, Blackbeard. Imagine him not as the caricature of fiction, but as he truly might have stood. Not yet. Let's go back, gently, to when Edward Teach first turned pirate. Tall perhaps, well over 6 feet, a giant by the standards of the time. His beard, black and coarse, braided into thick ropes, tied with slow-burning fuses. Sailors, once in high demand, were suddenly left ashore jobless, rootless, restless. Many turned to piracy, not for riches, but for bread, for purpose, for freedom. Not always lit, but often enough to leave an impression. The wind, sharp and salt-heavy, sweeps low across the marshes. He has accepted the king's pardon some weeks prior, though many suspect he never truly abandoned piracy. He still drinks heavily. He still carries 6 pistols strapped across his chest. But the days of the Queen Anne's revenge are behind him. She ran aground months before, perhaps deliberately. Now, he sails a smaller vessel. The Adventure? One man, Governor Alexander Spotswood of Virginia, decided Blackbeard must be stopped. In 1717, he captured a French slave ship, a vessel named Le Con. Their orders? Find Blackbeard. Kill him if necessary. He was cunning more than cruel. Many of his prizes surrendered without a fight, cowed by his fearsome appearance and reputation. In truth, there's little evidence that he killed wantonly. His greatest weapon was theater and fear. He refitted it, added cannons, and renamed it the Queen Anne's Revenge. A sandbar traps the British vessels for a time. Maynard orders the men to lighten the load, to throw cargo overboard. Eventually, the sloops clear and advance. The ship was large, swift, and deadly, his flagship, and his pride. When he wished to intimidate, he would light them, wisps of smoke curling around his head. A moving silhouette cloaked in fire and sulfur. Yet behind the fire, and the beard, behind the pistols and the pageantry, was a man perhaps desperate, perhaps defiant, who rose in the chaos of empire and sea, and was swallowed by it, in the end. But let's not begin at the end. The early 1700s were what some now call the golden age of piracy. The War of the Spanish Succession had recently ended. The men, breathing heavily, staring out over water that just moments before had seemed to boil, and more than 20 sword cuts before he fell. His body, according to the reports, was thrown overboard. His head was hung from the bowsprit of Maynard's ship as proof. Edward Teach, once a privateer sanctioned by the British Crown to harass enemy ships, slipped easily into this new life. For a time, Blackbeard ruled the waters from the Carolinas to the Caribbean. But the world does not long tolerate pirates. By 1780, the pressure grew. Colonial governors, once lenient or complicit, began to turn. Trade needed protection. Order had to be restored. Let your mind picture the coast of Ocracoke Island, North Carolina. It's late November. The trees are bare. Blackbeard is at anchor in a quiet inlet. His crew is reduced. He is not expecting what's to come. Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy is sent in secret to sloops lightly armed but packed with men. The morning of November 22nd, 1780, is gray and still. Blackbeard's lookouts spot the incoming ships, but it is too late to flee. The fight is brief, but brutal. Let us not describe it, blow for blow. That would not serve our purpose tonight. Instead, imagine the chaos in fragments. Smoke, shouting, the sharp crack of pistols, swords flashing in the early light, men falling to the deck, some rising again, some not. Blackbeard, by all accounts, fought like a man possessed. He is said to have taken 5 bullets. But let's step away from that image now. Instead, picture the silence after battle, the tide returning, red and cold, the Adventure adrift, sails hanging in tatters. And somewhere, not far from that place, the wind continues to whisper through the trees on shore, as it always has. Blackbeard was gone, but the legend had only begun. His name would become a tale told in candlelit rooms, to frighten children, to thrill sailors, to sell books and plays. So now, let us leave him there, on that quiet stretch of Carolina coast. Let the water close again. Let the silence return, and let us turn, softly, to the deep. There, waiting patiently on the ocean floor, lies a different story, a shipwreck. A time capsule of another crew, another fate. The wreck of the Wida. Imagine now, the world falling away beneath you. Sunlight dimming. The surface shimmering above as you descend into cool, quiet waters. The deeper you go, the more time seems to lose its hold. Here, on the ocean floor, the past sleeps undisturbed. And here lies the Wida. Once it sailed brightly under the West African sun. A ship of commerce, of cruelty, of gold. The Widow Galley, built in 1715 in England, was a sleek three-masted galleon slave ship, designed for speed and security. She bore her name from the port of Wida, in what is now Benin. Her holds were built to carry human cargo, men, women, and children taken from the West African coast and sold across the Americas, but her tale took a sharp turn in early 1717, when she was seized by pirates under the command of Samuel Bellamy. Captain Bellamy was a curious figure in the annals of piracy. Bellamy was sailing north, perhaps to visit a lover he had once left behind. The weather was turning thick, clouds gathered, and the winds howled in from the sea. The cold Atlantic crashing over the deck. The lanterns extinguished. The anchors dragging helplessly across the sandbars. Within moments, the ship was torn apart, flung violently onto the shoals near Wellfleet, young barely in his mid-20s. Intelligent, charismatic. He was called Black Sam, not for villainy. Only 2 men survived clinging to wreckage in the churning surf. The treasure was gone, or so it seemed. He was unusually democratic, reputedly treating his crew as equals. With her, he roamed the Atlantic coast, from the Caribbean to Newfoundland, seizing merchant vessels with surprising ease, later replaced with the cries of jubilant pirates. Her sails, once taut with imperial purpose, now swelled with rebellious freedom. The holds once filled with chains and suffering, now filled with loot coin, jewels, silver, and silk. It is said that Bellamy allowed those he captured to leave with their lives and, sometimes even their ships. People gaze at them through glass, perhaps not realizing that these were not just symbols of adventure, but the remnants of hard lives. And early deaths. The remnants of a crew frozen in time, everyday items tangled with opulence. The wreck had become a paradox. A grave and a museum. A treasure and a warning. But for his long, dark hair, which he wore tied back rather than powdered, a rare vanity among pirates. The anchor, half buried, pointing nowhere. The ocean sways above, vast and unknowable. He styled himself as a gentleman of fortune. A Robin Hood of the seas, some claimed. Parts of the ship still lie beneath, scattered by centuries of tide and storm. Some believe the Wida still guards its richest cargo, its heaviest chests and secrets strapped beneath the ever-shifting seabed. The Wida was Bellamy's prize, and soon became his flagship. Her decks once rang with the heavy footsteps of captured sailors. And then, just as quickly, came the end. It was April of 1717, off the coast of Cape Cod. The Wida was caught in a sudden and merciless storm. Try to imagine it. The masts snapping like kindling. She broke into pieces and sank. Bellamy, along with over 100 of his crew, was lost. And so, the Wida slept. For more than 260 years, she rested beneath the waves, buried under sand and silence. Her story half forgotten, twisted into legend. Then, in the 1980s, a young explorer named Barry Clifford followed old maps, records, and whispers and found her. It was the first authenticated pirate shipwreck ever discovered. The sea had preserved her secrets with astonishing care. Cannons, coins, pistols, shackles, a boy's shoe, a silk stocking, gold dust sealed in wax. Today, artifacts from the Wida are displayed on land, where dry air kisses them for the first time in centuries. But down in the sand, not all has been found. Let yourself rest in this quiet space a little longer. Picture the beams of the hull, covered in coral, fish darting between the ribs of the ship like birds through trees. In time, all ships settle, all storms pass, and now let us rise again, gently, through time and water, to the surface, to the shore. Because while the pirates lived rough, rootless lives, there was another world, nearby, a world of lace and linen, of perfumed letters and plantation opulence. The colonial elite. Let us walk softly now into their shaded parlors and sun-bleached verandas. Nobles of the Caribbean colonies now. Imagine your feet no longer on the creaking planks of a ship, but stepping gently onto warm, packed earth. The air here is different, heavy with the scent of sugarcane and blooming hibiscus, tinged faintly with wood smoke and sea breeze. You've arrived in the Caribbean, not the wild windswept edges, known to pirates but the world of colonial elites. The year is sometime in the early 18th century. The islands Jamaica, Barbados, Saint-Domingue, Martinique are dotted with estates. Vast plantations that stretch inland like carefully carved scars across the lush green landscape. This was the other face of empire. Sugar was no luxury here. It was the commodity, white gold, a substance so valuable that entire economies and untold human lives were bent to its cultivation. Layers of fashion not designed for the tropics, but maintained out of habit and status. Men dressed with equal formality, powdered wigs, heavy coats, breeches, stockings, shoes with gleaming buckles. Everything had to be shipped in, from furnishings to books, from porcelain to candles. A single broken window pane might take months to replace. Still, the planters maintained appearances. Tea was served on schedule. Letters written in careful copperplate, parties thrown for visiting governors. Where pirates sought fortune on the waves, the planter aristocracy built their wealth from the land, specifically from sugar. The house is large, but not ornate. By European standards, its grandeur lies more in size than style. A cooling drink rests on a small table, rum diluted with water and a touch of lime, sweating in the humid air. The air here is different, heavier. Flies gather in the humid pockets between stalks. The sun beats down relentlessly. Workers toil under its gaze. It's not the soft green of temperate lands, but a wilder palapalm fronds rustling in the breeze, flamboyant flowers in bloom, insects humming lazily in the heat. Their lives, largely unwritten in the planters' ledgers, were defined by exhaustion, danger, and pain. But let us not forget them. Let us hold their existence quietly in the margins of this world of chandeliers and harpsichords. Disease, malnutrition, many did not survive long. Parrots call from a tree. Somewhere, a servant moves silently, barefoot on the gravel path. Beyond the torches and oil lamps, the jungle loomed. The sea, just visible in the moonlight, whispered its own reminders that nothing here was permanent. Wide verandas circled the structure, shaded by awnings, draped in vines. Others faded into local history. Their children, raised under foreign stars, spoke with hybrid accents. Their loyalties were tested, their fears ever present. Hurricanes, disease, rebellion. The land could be beautiful, but never truly tamed. The faint clink of cutlery echoed from the dining room. More often, they were intimate gatherings of neighbors, officials, or family trading news from across the sea, discussing the price of sugar, or reading aloud from a London newspaper several weeks out of date. Conversations moved slowly, framed by fans and flickering candlelight. Sometimes music drifted through the hall, a violin, a harpsichord, the low murmur of song, the strange sensation of distance. Picture one of these great estates, whitewashed and symmetrical, perched atop a hill to catch the trade winds. Its wooden shutters are open to the heat. Inside, it is still. The ticking of a clock, the soft rustle of linen skirts. The nobles of the Caribbean colonies lived in contrast, luxury, forged from exploitation, beauty born of brutality. They wore fine clothes, imported at great cost. English silks and French perfumes, lace collars, and tightly boned corsets, even in the heat. Imagine walking through the garden behind the house. These households were not self-sufficient, and yet, just beyond the manicured hedges, lay the engine of it all. The fields, endless rows of sugarcane, tall and thick, rustling dryly in the breeze. Here, we must pause and acknowledge what the walls of the great house tried to forget. This wealth was built on enslaved labor. Men, women, and children, taken from West Africa, sold into bondage, forced to labor under inhuman conditions. We will not linger on those horrors in detail. Not tonight. Evenings on the plantation were often quiet. After the day's heat, the air cooled slightly. Lamps were lit. These were not grand balls or extravagant soirees. And above it all, these colonists lived suspended between worlds, part of European society, yet wholly apart from it. At night, in the stillness, some planters stood at their windows, gazing out across their lands they claimed, but did not truly understand. Many of these families would lose everything. Fortunes rose and fell with the tides, with changing laws, with revolutions, both quiet and bloody. Some fled back to Europe, but for a time, they lived in this strange tension. Elegance wrapped in heat and silence. Power perched atop fear. And now, we leave their world behind. Let us return to the present moment, and let the shadows of the past grow quiet once more. A quiet return. You've journeyed across rough waters and still plantations, through storm and silence, among the lost and the lavish, pirates and planters, ships and shores, the dream of freedom, and the price of fortune. Beneath the waves, beneath the floorboards, beneath the dust of centuries, not just in battles and names, perhaps with the soft hiss of imagined tides still in your ears, may you feel the distance between their world and ours, not to forget it, but to understand it, to know that in every storm-tossed deck, every buried wreck, every silent plantation room, were people simply living through their days, much like we do now, but in the rhythms of daily life, in biscuits and boots, in whispers and waves. History, in its own quiet way, is always waiting. As you rest now, let your breathing slow. Let the stories drift away like mist over the sea. You are here, safe, still, and the past can rest for now. Good night.